Happy Stranger Things Day, everybody. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video. So today I'm reacting to your Stranger Things hot takes. I've done this series for a while now. I've been saving Stranger Things for this day. I've got about 25 of your hot takes I'm going to be reacting to, so before I get into this, hit that like button, comment down below some of your Stranger Things hot takes, subscribe and hit that notification bell to help reach my goal of 100,000 subscribers here on the channel. It would mean a lot. And check out the Unusual Couple podcast. There's a special episode dropping tomorrow where we do Stranger Things trivia battles and just tons of Stranger Things talk. We're going to have a blast with it, so make sure to check that out. Dropping tomorrow. Podcast channel is linked down below. It goes without saying, Stranger Things is my favorite show of all time, and so I had to rep the Hellfire shirt because these are going to get a little hellishly hot, if you will. So you've been warned if you can't handle hot takes. Let's run this thing. Starting off, Season 2, Episode 7 isn't that bad. It explores more backstory to Eleven and gives us a better understanding of her past. It's definitely not the best episode, but it's still very good. I just disagree, wholeheartedly. This is the outlier episode of this show, the one episode that I skip when I rewatch Stranger Things, and I think collectively most people dismiss this episode's existence, and I think they're valid for that. When I told my parents they were watching the show for the first time, I told them, skip this episode. I told them what happened. I said, hey, skip this episode. Save yourself the time. I am the camp of please just keep it that way. Don't try and bring this and tie it back into the final season. It's not necessary, but, we'll see what they do. I trust the Duffer Brothers, and I think they've done their best to try and bury that episode. I think they know better than to bring that back, so I'm gonna have to disagree here. I think it is very bad. It's just a goofy, outlandish episode that has no place with the rest of Stranger Things, in my mind at least. This next one says, Matthew Modine's Dr. Martin Brenner was the most intriguing character in the series, and it's a shame he won't be in the final season of the show. Well, first of all, he could definitely still be in the final season of the show. Flashbacks do exist, and Stranger Things has had those happen before. Now, I am gonna have to disagree. I don't think he's remotely the most intriguing character in the show. There's that, that aura about the character. When he walks into a room, you're like, okay, something creepy is probably gonna happen, and he's definitely always plotting. But I wouldn't say he's the most intriguing character. I could name probably a dozen characters that are more intriguing than Dr. Martin Brenner. I think that Modine's great in the role. He became an iconic villain of Stranger Things, and, his silhouette, you see the white hair, and just his get-up, his costume, if you will. Iconic, right? Papa. We all know him as Papa, but by no means one of the most intriguing characters in the show to me. But again, to each their own. This next one says, the Rusher crew of Murray and Joyce in Season 4 is very underrated. The chemistry with these two characters is just so good, and when Hopper joined the crew, it got even better. I agree. I've seen this narrative going around online where it's like, oh, I'm rewatching Stranger Things, but I'm just gonna use the Russia storyline as my nap time, or I'm just gonna go on my phone. And I disagree. Like, I still think the Russia storyline provides a lot. Is it long? Is it a bit drawn out? Yes. Through 7 episodes, we don't see Hopper reunite with Joyce until the end of that 7th episode, which is Volume 1. Volume 2, I think the Russia storyline definitely is elevated. However, it is a long, drawn-out thing, but I think that's intentional because us as the viewers have to feel, my God, Hopper's been in this prison forever, and we kind of sit with that, and so it feels so much more rewarding when we see him come face to face with Joyce again. I'll never forget the first time I watched it. I'm giving myself chills right now. The door opens and they see each other, they embrace, but Hopper's like, this can't be real, this can't be real. He smells her hair when they're hugging, and this smile just slowly starts to grow on his face, and I'm like, man, they're so good together. And I just love Hopper. I'm so happy for him that he finally got to reunite with her. So I agree, the Russia crew is underrated. The next one says, hot take, I think Season 2 had the best finale of the entire show. Wow, I disagree, but I want to say this. I think the Season 2 finale is the strongest episode of Season 2, and it's still a damn good episode of TV. There's not a bad season finale in Stranger Things. However, I can't put any episode of the show below the piggyback right now. Any of the finales in particular. You want to go Season 1, Season 2, Season 3, Season 4, line up those finales. Season 4's finale is taking that top spot. It's 2 hours and 22 minutes. It's a movie. That has to take the top spot for me. So as good as that episode is, the 1-2 punch of eps 8 and 9, because we have the episode 7, which is like the outlier gap episode. If you go the triple threat of Season 2, Episode 6, then you go skip 7, you go 8, 9, it's a great little triple threat to end Season 2. So I respect the episode. It's great. It's nowhere near the best finale to me, because even Season 3's finale I think is outstanding. So you could argue 1 versus 2, and I might actually even lean the Season 2 finale over the Season 1 finale, but then you go 3, 4, those are above it for me, so disagree with that. This next one says Season 1 is the weakest. I don't even know if I should read the rest of this, but it says season 1 is the weakest and it did feel long. I know a lot of people think 2 is because of the Lost Sister episode and I Love Halloween, blah, blah, blah. Look, I can't get on board with season 1 being the weakest. And I know people personally, you guys even know people that have been on the channel personally who think season 1 is the weakest. And I can't stand by that. I know it's an old school narrative to think, well, the one that started it all, you can't just have it at the top. And I don't think that way. I love season 1. It's the one that started it all, it's nostalgic, it's special, but I don't think it's the best season. I acknowledge 3 and 4 are better. But to say it's the weakest, I can't do that because there was a point in time where we as a society, at least most of society, including me, were on board with Stranger Things being a one and done because of how great the first season was. So of course I'm happy they expanded the world and gave us seasons 2, 3, and 4, and eventually 5, but we lived in a society where for the longest time, we were content with just, let season 1 be season 1. That was about a few months after season 1 ended. I was like, don't do season 2. They announced season 2, of course, and I was like, oh, I'll see what they do, but I never thought we'd reach the height of season 1. Little did I know we would, but I still give the edge to season 1 over 2. I think 1's a little more rewatchable. I know that's kind of a hot take. Apparently, a lot of people love 2, and I think 2 is good as well. But from the moment, Will Byers gets taken, there's that intrigue, and it hooks me. It's a great hook, and just such a perfectly crafted one-off season of television that still had so much room in there to set up this whole world of the Upside Down and Hawkins and everything. So, love it, and I cannot say it's the weakest. But this next hot take says, season 3 is a phenomenal season of TV. That's not even a hot take. I just wanted to put this on here because apparently everyone was saying this in the comments. I said, drop your hot takes below, and everyone was saying, season 3 is great. Love season 3. Season 3 is underrated. And then I got to thinking, why is that a hot take? But I go and I look on TikTok and all these people are like, season 3 is the worst. Season 3 stinks. Season 3. I could sit here and go on and on. You get a lot of Hopper and Joyce here with Murray having more of a prominent role. This season is so good. You've got the Starcourt Mall as like the main setting. I cannot fathom a world where this is the worst season of the show, and people left and right will tell you it is online, and I strongly disagree with that. So I agree with your hot take, and if it's a hot take to sit here and say season 3 is fantastic, then I'm right here. I'm this shirt, because I am Hellfire. Jonathan's character arc when he's lying to Nancy about what college he wants to go to and all. He's a top tier character. No! Listen, I know Mike has had his ups and downs throughout the show, but to say he's a top tier, can't do it. Is he one of the 5 original main kids? Yeah. Does that make him a top tier character? No. Just because he was there first doesn't make him the best, which I know is kind of the opposite of what I was just saying about the whole Stranger Things season 1, or like how I feel about Iron Man in the MCU, but this is character versus overall project. When it comes to Mike as a character, he struggled to really develop for me. Like, he struggled a lot. He's had opportunity after opportunity to push himself, to better himself emotionally, but also just as a friend. And I think he's consistently dropped the ball when he's had those opportunities presented to himself. He can't read the room, whether that's his relationship with Elle or his friendship or more with Will, and he consistently just does things where I'm like, you idiot. Now, of course, he does have his highlight moments. In season 2 in particular, he figures out, that it's this ambush with the tunnels. And even in season 4, he has his moment with the I love you speech, whatever, right? Mike's not a terrible character, but he's very irritating, very annoying, and very up and down for me. So I can't sit here and tell you he's a top tier character when he's like this for me. Like, how I feel about Mike, usually on that low part. If he's a roller coaster, he's usually at the dip for me. Sometimes he peaks, but not a lot. Next, we've got one saying, the first half of season 4 is the only solid season, the rest is mid. Sorry, I had to pause for a second there. I was like, wait, what? And then it says season 4 raises the stakes when it comes to storytelling and where the story is going, and realize I can't even read this, so I'm not gonna continue. To say the first half of season 4 is the only solid season, the rest is mid, so why'd you watch season 4 then? If the rest of the show was mid for 3 seasons, but the first half of season 4 was solid, then I don't know, I don't know why you're saying this. So many people that go online are like, oh, mid. You're watching though. This next one says, Max should have stayed dead at the end of season 4. To be clear, I don't think she could have been killed in the first place, but Elle shouldn't have revived her, as it would have shown that no main character is truly safe from Vecna. I agree. In the moment, I was like, damn, she died, and it was this really sad moment that was so well acted and just ripped our hearts out. And then they turn around and revive her, and I'm never crazy about that. And I kind of agree that right now I do wish she would have stayed dead, but maybe they have something greater planned for her. Maybe they got cold feet. It's one of those two. And we're gonna find out, but I do think they could have killed her and it would have just been more of a gut punch. She's essentially dead to me though. That's the compromise I think they made. They're like, we don't want to fully kill her off, but she's kind of dead right now. She can't see and she's in a coma, so she's sort of dead, maybe? That's kind of the route they're going, so we'll see what happens. Hot take, Eleven is extremely evil and she's been pulling all the strings to rule the world. I don't know, that might be the most ridiculous take I've heard ever. How could they even write that and make it make sense? It would be disastrous if that was the case. Hot take, Stranger Things has way too many characters and needs to kill more of them off. We get 2 to 3 more leads every season. I will agree in a sense, because they do that thing where they're like, here's some new characters and you guys are gonna fall in love with them and then we're gonna kill them. They didn't do that with Robin, surprisingly, but no, I do agree they've added characters every season and we almost have a wealth of characters now to a fault. Like, we have so many elite characters in Stranger Things that it can feel a little overwhelming. And I was rewatching season 4 to prep for my trivia, which I made for Cam, which again, link below. Please go check out the episode that drops on November 7th of 2023, whenever you're watching this video. But regardless, go watch it. And season 4 really had a lot going on in terms of characters. And it reminds me of Infinity War. I hate to be the guy that's like, oh, I'm comparing to Infinity War, because we know people do that all the time and it's just easy to compare to. But Infinity War, you grew this universe, you had all these superheroes, so you'd go 45 minutes in that movie without seeing Tony or Doctor Strange, but you'd see Thor and Rocket, or you would see Thanos and Gamora. So there's so many little pockets of characters. I feel like that's where Stranger Things is at. The cool thing is, I do think they're going to correct this by going back to the roots in season 5, and it's just going to be one big character grouping. They're going to have their little sub-groupings within the main characters. Like, it's going to be the biggest in scale yet in terms of the vision. Like, there's going to be the Upside Down versus the real world. It's bleeding together. But I think in terms of characters, it's not going to feel as bloated. I think they're really going to go back to the roots, the simplicity, and it's going to work in my opinion. This next one says, hot take, I would love the show to end up being a dream. I'm a sucker for those endings. That would be offensive to the point of almost ruining the show for me, and I think everyone could agree. If it's like, oh, it was all a D&D campaign, and they lived happily ever after. Stranger things have happened. I might vomit, for starters. I would probably projectile vomit. Then I would probably cry a bit, be in denial, and then probably take like a cold shower, and then just sleep and maybe never wake up. That's what would happen. Moving on, Eddie should be left dead and not come back alive in season 5. But at the same time, if they do bring back Eddie, I'll keep an open mind, hoping it can somewhat make sense. Fair enough. I am in the camp that he should probably stay dead. Don't tell Cam. I just think it would serve everyone's character arc a little better. I think that everyone can learn from his death, especially Dustin, and he can sort of move into a leadership role for his peers and almost fill in the gap that Eddie left in terms of being the leader of Hellfire, or just being that light for those around him, guiding the sheep, if you will. Look, Eddie coming back, I feel like, is inevitable to a certain extent, but at the same time, impossible. It is the most divided I may have ever been on a character returning, because on one hand, Joseph Quinn has risen to superstardom, and if you go to a convention that Joseph Quinn is at, like a Comic-Con, you're going to be waiting longer for him than anyone else. He's got a huge fan base. There's that popularity with the character who became lovable, so bringing him back would be a smart business decision. But then you go to the story and you're like, is there room for him to return without it getting bloated and over the top cheesy and stupid? I don't know. Hopper came back. That's the one thing I will say is Hopper came back, and that seemed unlikely. So anyone can come back in Stranger Things. I mean, we've seen it countless times, I want to say, with Brenner, with Max, we've seen it with Hopper, we've seen it. 11 at the end of season 1. Characters can die, sort of, and come back. Vecna is going to come back, you know. So that no one's ever really gone is what I'm getting at here. So there's a world where he comes back, but the happy medium, the compromise I have to this is we will see Joseph Quinn reprise the role, but it will be in a flashback, Force Ghost type thing. You know, I trust the Duffer Brothers to write a scene better than me, but still, to some extent, Eddie Munson will play a role in the next season. This next one is from Starcourt Food Court. Everyone go give them a follow on all the social medias. But this says, hot take, I know a lot of people didn't like how the Duffers wrote Jonathan in season 4, but for me, I liked how they did it. Yes, Jonathan was a stoner, but only for the first few episodes, and I feel like him being high all the time was to cope/hide from his problems with Nancy and being away from Hawkins. Once things got serious in episode 4 with their house being raided, he was sober throughout the rest of the season, taking everything seriously, being back to normal Jonathan. He even mentioned it to Will in Vault 2 how he's sorry he wasn't there for him because he's being depressed and stoned all the time. If he was not caring, being busy, getting high through the whole season, then I would have had a big problem with it, but I think the Duffers were smart in making his character realistic for season 4. That's fair. I just think the issue I take with season 4 Jonathan is how irrelevant he feels to everything. Like, Jonathan had a big role in season 1 and 2, and in season 3, sort of, sure, he was, you know, on the case with Nancy, but then you go to season 4 and it's like, Jonathan, what are you doing with your life? What are you doing? Maybe that's me being a little harsh on him, but I just didn't care about him in season 4, and I don't really care about him at all. Like, if Jonathan was not in the final season, like the opening of season 5, we pick up on the hill and like a an asteroid comes and crushes him, I would just move on with my life. Like, I don't hate him. I know that makes it sound like I hate him, but if he just got dusted away with no explanation, I really wouldn't feel as though the show changed at all. And that shows you how irrelevant a character has become, in my opinion. Because he played such a minuscule role in season 4, excuse me, that I just don't really care. So I totally see where you're coming from. I don't really critique the writing of his character, really. He was kind of just a bum, and you're right, he was in a depressed headspace and you know, missed Hawkins, all that stuff, but I just don't really care about him at this point, and yeah. I gotta grab something for this next one. Dustin is not a good character. He's annoying, especially in season 4, and doesn't do anything. See this? It's called a thinking cap. You should put it on next time before you drop a hot take like that, because this makes no sense at all. Season 4 would be non-existent without Dustin Henderson. He is the main detective on the case, the Sherlock Holmes, if you will, cracking the case. He is solving everything. Without Dustin's brain in this season, nothing would progress. Look at the Upside Down when you've got, you know, Robin, Nancy, Steve, Jonathan down there in the Upside Down. He's figuring out how to communicate with them, you know, through the lights, essentially. He is figuring out everything about the various gates that are popping up around. So to say he does nothing is a horribly wrong take. That is just incorrect information. To say he's annoying is wild as well to me. Like, what annoys you about him? His voice, maybe? The way that he talks? I mean, he can't help that, first of all. Secondly, he's so lovable. I wanna give Dustin a hug. And I also love Gaten Matarazzo, but to say Dustin's annoying, I'm annoyed by that take. And to say he's a bad character is also just horribly incorrect. And I know everyone's allowed to have their opinion. I disagree strongly with that opinion. Strongly with that opinion. To say that he's a bad character? What? Alright, that thing was too tight on my head, but love you, Dustin. This next one says, Will Byers is a boring character. I wouldn't say Will's boring, I would say Will's traumatized. I don't know if that equals boring. Will's gone through the ringer, notably in the first 2 seasons of the show, and then, you know, him trying to get back to reality is difficult because he is at a different phase of life than his buddies in season 3. They're all trying to move on, and he just wants to go back to that stage of innocence where he's, you know, playing D&D with his buds, Will the Wise. I don't think he's boring. I just think that he isn't given the most to do a lot of the time. So I wouldn't call Will boring. He's not one of my favorites, admittedly, but I don't know if Will's boring. He's inherently almost interesting because he's connected to the Upside Down, and he's not on screen a lot in season 1, but something's always going on with Will. He's always having some tingle on his neck or some chill or some feeling or sense that something greater's out there. He's got a deep connection to the Upside Down, and I think that season 5 will sort of rectify any boredom you might have with the character and make him very interesting, just straight up. If he's not doing enough for you, he will in season 5. But the next one says, Hot Take, Steve is overrated. So I grabbed the thinking cap for Dustin. If I had my bat, I would throw it at the camera right now, but I don't have my Steve bat. I don't have a Steve bat. I need to acquire one of those. Steve is easily a top 5 character in the show. He is my 1A, 1B. I go Hopper and Steve. They're like tied for my favorites, but to say he's overrated, that's awful. I think that he is clearly one of the best characters in the show, with development that shows from season 1 through 2 through 3 through now 4. He has come so far and progressed. He is easily one of the best characters in the show. He's a fan favorite for a reason. Not overrated in the slightest, in my opinion. This next one says, Eleven is a bottom tier character. I prefer Enzo over her. Is something going on here to just be like, Eleven is the bottom tier? I mean, look, I don't think Eleven is a top tier character in this show, but I think that she is, if we're going like S, A, B, C, D, she's at least B. Like, that's bare minimum. She is still one of the main characters of the show. The main plot revolves around her damn near every season. She's crucial to everything that's going on. She's not the best character in the show, that's a fact, but bottom tier, that's harsh. That's really harsh. And Enzo over her, a damn prison guard from Russia, is better than Eleven. That's blasphemy. Vecna is not a good villain. Vecna is a fantastic villain. Where are these takes coming from today? The reveal at the end of season 4, episode 7, that Henry Creel is 01 and Vecna, they're all the same, I mean, blew my mind. And he's such a well-developed villain because we see him as Vecna. We don't know who he is. We see these flashbacks with Henry Creel, and then we see 01. All of these facets we see of this character, and they all combine as Vecna at the end of that. And moving forward, I mean, he's hell-bent on destroying 11. All the dots have been connected. His plan through the first 4 seasons is sort of retconned into this understanding that we now have of his vision and how it's been clear. And I think they're just going to further solidify him as a fantastic villain in Season 5. They're going to tie a nice bow on his character and his motives and everything, and any questions we might have about things making sense or not, those are going to be clarified. He is easily the best villain in this show, and he's been pulling the strings all along. He is the best villain by far. This next one says, Eddie is overrated and mid. Eddie's a great character, I'll die on that hill, and I think a lot of people always liked Eddie, and then a certain section of people who claim to be fans of Stranger Things were like, oh, Eddie ruined Stranger Things. And anyone who says that, I don't think was ever really a fan of Stranger Things. They just claim to be. Because Eddie's the heart and soul of what Stranger Things is about. You know, he's a caring, loving individual who makes people feel comfortable in their own skin and not ashamed of who they are. He's a great leader, he is awesome, he's a warrior, he's a hero in the end. Just because there's people out there who like to cosplay as him or quote his lines, like, I don't really understand how that's mid or overrated. He's a great character. Is he the best character in Stranger Things? I don't think so. But that's not really a shot at him because it's one of the few shows in the world where they develop multiple characters, and it's hard to even have a top 10 because there's 20 almost characters that you could love, right? So I don't think he's overrated in the slightest. I don't think he's mid. I think to get real here for a second, there's a specific type of person who is upset that a bunch of girls fell in love with Eddie as a character and talk about him a lot, and so they're like, we can't like him. It's like bro-y culture, you know, dudes who are like offended to their core that Eddie is loved by people, especially women. It's like, yeah, he's badass. What do you expect, you know? So I think there's a lot of insecurity with people out there, and that happens in all fandoms. It's not just Stranger Things. People will be like, oh, well, the girls like him, so it's cringe. It's just annoying, and people need to grow up. Eddie's a badass. This next take is comfortably one of the worst takes I've seen in one of these hot take videos. It says, Jonathan and Billy greater than Steve. This is likely rage bait, but still. First of all, Billy's dead, and he was a asshole for the majority of his time in the show. And Jonathan is kind of irrelevant now. To say both of them combined are better than Steve is just a joke. What a sick joke. This next one says, Hopper is overrated. I just find him annoying. He has some nice moments with Eleven and Joyce, but apart from that, he was a pretty boring character for me. Well, he's still alive, so he is a pretty boring character for you, I guess. But when it comes down to it, to say Hopper's overrated is disgusting. I think it's just a really awful take. He's one of the main characters of the show. He's the sheriff of this small town where nothing ever happens. He gets thrown into the mix of it. They unpack all this trauma with his character, and then in Season 2, he's taking on this fathership role with Eleven. That carries on into Season 3. He then makes the sacrifice play, and in Season 4, he comes back and he's questioning his purpose in life, and if he's even, you know, necessary to be around anymore. Like, he feels like he just hurts those around him more than helps, and it's kind of insane how someone that well written could be called annoying or overrated. In Season 3, he's hilarious, alright? I don't want to hear any slander of Chief Jim Hopper. He's Chief Jim Hopper. Eddie and Dustin are a better duo than Steve and Dustin, so I go back and forth on this one. Right now, I lean Steve and Dustin, and we didn't get much of Eddie and Dustin. I think Eddie was a better mentor to Dustin and related to him more. I think that they had something a little more personal at times, but Steve and Dustin, through all of Season 3, through all of Season 2, and through Season 4 even, they're the better duo. We have more of them. We have a bigger sample size, but also they have come so far as friends. I just think I give them the edge right now, but if we got Eddie and Dustin in another season, maybe I would lean them. The wisdom that Eddie passed on to Dustin is unmatched. However, as a duo, I think I have more memorable moments that I love and can pinpoint with Steve and Dustin. And the last hot take sort of hints at what could be coming in Season 5. Hot take, Will is going to be the bad guy of Season 5. I just don't see this happening. Could you imagine if the kid who's taken in Season 1 ends up being the main villain? I just wouldn't like that at all. I think it would diminish his character development. It would diminish the show as a whole for me. It'd be cheap. Now, I trust the Duffer Brothers to pull off about anything, but I think they're smart enough to know that would piss a lot of people off, and it would feel wrong. You know, some things just don't feel right, and Will Byers being the main villain would feel just incorrect. It'd feel inappropriate almost. Like, I would feel violated. Like, what? He's the villain? What's going on? I think there will be a phase, maybe the final season, where he has a connection to Vecna, or maybe that's the whole season, and maybe, you know, Vecna could remotely possess him for a bit, and we see, like, the villainous side. Almost like Void Styles in Teen Wolf. Had to get that in there for those Teen Wolf fans. But no, I don't think Will Byers, is just going to be like, I've been behind everything all along. There could be a world where Will dies, and then Vecna inhabits the shell of his body. Even then, that feels like a bit of a stretch. So I don't think Will's going to be the villain, but he could do villainous things at times. But that does it for reacting to your Stranger Things hot takes. Stay tuned for that podcast episode, guys. It might be out when you're watching this. It might not be. It comes out November 7th, and it's linked down below. If you want to see me and Cam go toe-to-toe, we made Stranger Things trivia. I made Season 4 trivia for her. She made Season 3 for me. It's going to be a battle, so we're going to see who comes out on top. Check that out. But drop your Stranger Things hot takes in the comments down below. As always, stay tuned for more Stranger Things content coming soon. Stranger Things I adore more than anything in terms of media, and so of course I love to make content about it because I love it talking about it with you guys, and I'm just kind of talking in circles right now. But that's going to do it. Hit the like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. So close to 100,000 subscribers. Help me make that final push. It would be awesome. Happy Stranger Things Day to those out there watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys on the other side of the upside down.